welcome back to another video, and welcome to my final Macintosh 2025 video. Now, I've had a pretty fun Macintosh this year. I spent a lot of time looking at various PowerBooks, 1400 series to 500 series. But today I wanted to get back to desktop Macs, and more specifically 9-inch Macs. And even more specifically, this collection here of abandoned, dirty, mistreated, and probably broken Macintosh SEs. So let's go through these SEs, find out which ones work, which ones have been horrifically destroyed by battery damage, and see if we can't get them looking just a little bit better. Alright, so I've had these Macintosh SEs for a while. The two on the bottom here I got from another collector who was kind of getting out of the collection hobby, I guess you could say. So I think he just gave them to me. This one up here was a barn found Macintosh SE. Found this on Facebook Marketplace along with an SE30. The SE30 was battery damaged. The SE itself, I don't know. I haven't been able to open it. One of the screws is stripped, so we'll need to drill that out to get inside before we try to turn it on. And this one, I don't remember where I got this one from, but it is pretty dirty. So this one's pretty clean, but has spent a lot of time in a barn. These two are exceptionally dirty. I have no idea what the status is. This one's got a floppy stuck in the floppy drive. And one of these two here, this one, says no good on the side. So that's not promising. But alright, let's start tearing these guys apart. I think the first thing I want to do, at least with these bottom two, is get them cleaned up before I start touching them too much. So let's do that. So for cleaning today, I'm going to be trying out this Dawn Power Wash. My friend Laddie actually turned me on to this. He said he'd been using it for cleaning up vintage computers, and it works really well. So I looked it up. We all know that Dawn is the best soap for cleaning gunk off of stuff. And this power wash, if you look at the ingredients, it actually contains isopropyl alcohol or isopropanol. I don't know if you can see that here, but number one ingredient, alcohol denat. So the two best things for cleaning computers are isopropyl alcohol, which is usually what I use here, 99%, and Dawn dish soap. And so this thing combines them both together, and he says it works really well. So thought I'd buy a bottle and give it a try. Now, they have a bunch of different varieties. They have like a lavender scented one and I think a citrus scented one, but I got this free and clear version, so hopefully my Macs don't smell like lavender or whatever after I get them clean. But maybe that's something you'd be interested in. So if this works out and you like lavender, maybe that's something you can look at. So I think we got to turn this to yellow here, and then let's just, yeah, all right, there we go. Let's spray these guys down. Let's see if this stuff actually does what it says it should do. And these things are really dirty, so. Oh yeah, look at that. It's just filthy little Macs. That does seem to get the glass nice and clean, at least. Wow, look at that. Yeah, I have no idea where these were. This came from the same collector that I got some other stuff from. I've featured on the channel. I think the Apple II machines, the 2E machines, and those had wasp nests in them and were quite dirty as well. So I presume those were kept outside somewhere. So I'm guessing these were probably kept outside as well. Yeah, look at that. It's just a lot of gunk on there. I gotta say, it's coming off pretty well with this Dawn Power Wash stuff. Now there's gonna need to be some detail work here, like in these ridges and the floppy drive bays, because a little hard to get in there. Probably end up using a toothbrush for that, but yeah, we're making really good progress so far, I think. All right, well, I think what I'll do is I'll just keep cleaning these, and I'll put on some royalty-free music, and you can enjoy a little bit of, I guess, Macintosh cleaning with some great music. All right, well, I'm not going to say that those are 100% perfect now, but man, for just like a couple minutes worth of work with this stuff, look how much better they look. And, using the toothbrush to get in here into some of these, details really seems to help. There's a little bit more work to do on this one, but overall, I would say, this stuff works great. So, Laddie, thanks for the tip. Really appreciate it. Okay, so we got the fronts cleaned up, the sides, and the tops and the backs are just as bad, I think. Let's spin this one around and look at the top. Yeah, that's pretty rough. But I think it should clean up fairly easily. There's not so many small areas of detail, little crevices that need to be cleaned. Looks like just these two here. So, all right, back to the music. So just that quick clean gets a ton of the dirt off, but obviously we go back and give a little more effort to this one. But I'm really interested to start at least taking this one apart, seeing what it looks like inside, having been kept in a barn. So I'm gonna use my long-handled Torx driver here. All right, then we'll just place it face down. Oh, we got some stuff going on in the bottom as well. Give that a quick clean. Yeah, look at how quickly it just cleans up years of gunk. This stuff works really well. Again, not perfect, but a little bit of extra work here, and we get that all taken care of. Just all that gunk. All right, let's see if I can crack this guy open with gloves on. All right, there we go. I got it. All right, and inside, I can see it already. Another wasp nest. That one's on the CRT. So this one obviously kept outside as well. All right, so let's stand it back up. All right, so in this one we've got this wasp nest. The mud dauber wasp, I think. So what they do is they catch various bugs, they entomb them in their nest, and then whenever they are ready to eat, they eat them. Maybe they feed them to their babies. I'm not a biologist, but anyway, they capture and store stuff. And if I look here, there's actually some shells of long dead food in there. I don't know what this was, if this was like a pupa from a wasp or if it was actual food. But I'm getting dirt everywhere, so I'm going to just dump this out over the garbage can really quickly. You think with the number of what mud dauber wasp nests I found in computers that I would be an expert on those things, but I am not. All right, so this one said no good. I have no idea why that might be. Does that mean no power? Does that mean something happened to the board? So I think the first thing I want to do is, disconnect the neck board so I don't snap the neck on the CRT. Then I want to disconnect everything from the board. So we'll take SCSI connection off, a floppy connection, and then ideally power if I can get my fingers in there. All right, let's pull the board out. So remember, these boards, they're hinged kind of. Pull them up a little bit, and then you can yank them out. All right, so here's our board. Looks to be in fairly good shape. A little dusty and dirty, but not too bad. It's only got 2 of the RAM sims populated, so if we want to get this up to 4 megabytes, we'll need to get some more RAM in it. Luckily, I have a bunch, and we have this awful battery in here. Although the Tataram batteries aren't typically so bad. It's the Mac SEs that are bad, but I've seen these leak too. But this battery is manufactured in May. It was manufactured or expired? Anyway, 1990. So we'll get that guy out of there. The board seems to be in fairly good shape. Bottom side has got another insect of some type on it. Let's scrape that off in case it's shorting something out. So there's no surface mount electrolytic capacitors on the SE boards. There are some axials, which can go bad, typically don't. But for the most part, you don't need to recap anything on an SE board. They typically have just continued to work since they were created, unless the battery leaks. It's also possible ROMs can go bad, RAM can go bad. I mean, there are certainly things that can fail on these boards, but they're pretty reliable. So let's set this off to the side for now. I'll clean up a little bit more of this mud. So usually with an SE, if there is a problem, it's on the analog board because it does have a lot of electrolytic capacitors. CRT could also be bad, but I'm not seeing any sort of crazy leakage anywhere. We could pull the analog board off and see what it's doing, but I think at this point I'm ready to just give this thing a try and see if it actually works or not, or at least see what it does so we can figure out what needs to be repaired. Oh, there's some more dead bug parts there. Ladybugs or Asian beetles. All right, so we line this up. All right, so I'm not going to plug the speaker in. I'm not going to plug in the disk drive. I'm not going to plug in the hard drive. Just going to plug in the connection to the analog board. I'll spin this around. Oh, I got to plug the neck board back in. All right, so I've got it plugged in but switched off. Now, if you're going to be taking apart a classic Mac, remember that this monitor in here, once you energize it, it retains energy for a long time, potentially. It can have potential lethal voltages. There are voltages on the analog board, so if you're going to run one of these with the case off, be exceptionally careful about what you touch and what you do. All right, so let's flip the switch here. I would like to be able to get my arm out a little faster in case something goes wrong, so let's see what happens. We're just getting a bunch of clicking. So that is an analog board problem for sure. So potentially a recap could fix that. It could be that the flyback's bad. It could be that the power supply, the switching mode power supply in there is bad. But that should be fixable. And then assuming that works, the system board should work as well. So we got a little bit of repair to do on this guy. Let's clear the bench off and get to work on this one. All right, so here's our first SE. So I wanted to take this chassis, which is an SE chassis with no system board in it. I forgot what happened to the system board. I think it might have been battery damaged or I don't know, it doesn't matter. Anyway, this is a fully working chassis with no motherboard in it. And this is our mud dauber board here. So I wanted to do a little bit of testing. So the first thing I'm going to do is, again, disconnect the board here. If I can get my fingers in there again. And then with that unplugged, we can pull it up. And hinge it out. All right. So we'll set this chassis off to the side for now. All right, so we can open this one up. All right, so like I mentioned, I've got power supply, analog board, CRT. This chassis should just work. So let's go ahead and hook up this board to this chassis and see if the board works. Plug in some power. Ooh. It's causing that clicking sound. Yeah, so something on this board itself is causing the problem. That is interesting. That is pretty rare to have happen. So this is doing the same thing in this chassis that it was doing in the chassis it came in, which is making the power supply click on and off. So I suspect there's a short or something on here. So I think what I'll do for now is I'm gonna give this thing a nice bath. Maybe there's a dead bug or piece of mud in here causing a short. But if I give it a bath, maybe that will resolve the issue. So I think the first thing I'll do is I'll just pre-soak it with that Dawn Power Wash. get the backside too. But yeah, over in the sink then, I'll use some regular Dawn and we'll get this thing scrubbed up. I'll be using my toothbrush as well. All right, so I give this board a nice scrub. And then what I like to do is flush all the water off with 99% isopropyl alcohol to make sure that there's no like standing water anywhere, like in any of the sockets or anything. So that should be good. All right, let's plug it in and see what, just kidding, it's still very wet. I need to let this thing dry for probably 12 to 14 hours before we plug it in. So we'll set this one off to the side, let it dry, and we'll try this one again tomorrow. But yeah, you can see how quickly the isopropyl dries off these things, so should be no problem. All right, let's crack into this one next. This is the one that says no good. Front's looking nice and clean. Top, however, we didn't clean the top of this one yet, so let's just do that really quickly. And there's some sort of tape residue on here. Yeah, it's amazing how fast this Dawn Power Wash just cleans things up. Look at that. Now again, we could spend a little more time and do a better job, but I don't even know if this one's going to work. So let's just leave it at that for now. All right. So we'll get this one apart. What are the chances we find another wasp nest in it? I would say probably pretty good, given my experience here. But apparently this one was already bad before it even got put in long-term storage outside or wherever it was. And this screw is rusty. That's not a good sign. I'll get the two from the handle here. All right. So let's try to get into this one. Nice and easy. All right, let's see what we see. Okay, this one is actually super clean inside. I don't see any sort of wasp cohabitation. There's hardly any dust on it. The CRT looks like very clean, just a little tiny bit of dust. Hard drive's pretty clean. So I'd say this machine looks like it's in really good shape. But perhaps it's no good. So we'll need to figure that out. So first thing to do is disconnect the neck board so we don't break the neck. Then we can disconnect SCSI, floppy, pull it out a little, try to get our finger in here and disconnect. There we go. All right, so then we can take the board out here. Lift it up. It looks like there is some potential liquid damage on this board. Could be a battery that leaked. No, battery's good. All right, so this one has, I think 4 megs of RAM, or those 256Ks. Nope, they're 256. So this one has the stock 1 meg of RAM. We have a Varta battery here, which needs to go, but it hasn't leaked yet. I don't even see any signs of leakage. It's pretty amazing. Board looks much dirtier than the rest of the computer did. And yeah, it looks like there might be some sort of something happening on the bottom of the board here. Dirt. Maybe it's liquid damage. I don't know, I can't quite tell. All right, what I'd like to do is, let's try this board and the other chassis first. Let's see if this board works. Then we can try this chassis to see if this chassis works. All right, so plug the speaker in to see if we get a chime. And then put the board in here. All right, let's plug it in. Oh, we need to plug in the analog board as well. There we go. Give it some juice. Okay, it's doing the same thing. And that thing is not good. I thought I remembered this being good, but I kind of broke one of Adrian's black basic rules of not testing my test equipment before testing it with other equipment. So certainly could be that this chassis is no good. So we'll leave the battery for now, but let's go ahead and hook it back up. Plug the nut cord back in. Plug this analog board back in, if I can get my fingers in there again. All right. So let's give this no good Mac some juice and see what happens. It chimes. And that's a really good sign. No, I think the hard drive's dead. I didn't hear the hard drive spin up. Yeah, but that's not really a problem. Let's turn it off. All right, we'll plug in my Blue SCSI here. Let's see if we can get it to boot. Yeah, booting right up right off the Blue SCSI. Okay, well, the image I have there is System 7.5 and doesn't run on 1 meg RAM. But this machine appears to be fine. I can swap out the image, but I think this one's probably good. Just needs a bit more detailing to get some of that extra dirt off, but I think we're in good shape with this one. So not too bad. We're 1 for 2 so far. Now I'm going to yoink this drive out of here because it doesn't need to be in here, as it doesn't work. So this is an ST138N. ST is Seagate Technologies. Oh, it says Seagate on the side, so yeah. I don't know how big a 138N is, but I do know this one does not spin up. Alright, let's take the drive off of its chassis. Alright, we have one last thing to do before we close it up, and that is to reconnect the floppy drive. There we go. This is the one that's got the floppy stuck in it. So I'm assuming this floppy drive is bad, but I'm not super concerned about that because I don't really use floppies. This is the Apple Share File Server Workstation installer, version 201. Works for Plus, SE, and 2. The chances of this disk still working, probably not great, but we'll try it on a different system. You obviously know the floppy drive here is at least unable to eject disks. So let's put this back together. Put the case back on here. Okay. So I'm not going to put the rusty screw back in. I'll use a different one. Try to make it look as nice as possible. All right, and then we've got our handle screws. See this one, fully functional, just dirty, dirty, dirty. So no hard drive, obviously, but like I said, we don't need that. So let's go ahead and finish cleaning this guy up. The sides do look a bit dirty, and yeah, there's just some more junk on it. So we'll get this guy cleaned up here. there we go. This Macintosh SE cleaned up super nicely. There are still some additional scuffs, scratches, marks on it, but considering how bad it looked, it's a ton better now. And we got this no good off the side almost completely. There's just a little bit left. I think a little bit more scrubbing we could get that, but I'm really happy with how this turned out. This stuff, not a sponsor, but Don, if you're out there, pay me. I'll talk about your stuff. I'm going to talk about it anyway. This stuff works really good. So thanks again, Laddie, for the recommendation. It's just amazing how well this works. All right. So we've got 1 out of 2 so far working, cleaned, tested. Good enough. Let's bring up contestant number 3. All right, so contestant number 3. Is this the one that's got this stripped out? No. This one is all good. This one's just dirty. So we know what to do. Let's get back to the cleaning. All right, so unfortunately, I just worked on contestant number 3 here, and I forgot to hit record on the camera. So I've been talking to myself for the last half an hour or so. But as you can see, this one works. Let me go over the highlights just so you can at least know what I did to this one. So this was the one that I had just had lying around for a while. It was dirty, but not as dirty as contestants 1 and 2. I don't remember where I got it from. So maybe it was sold as working, or maybe I got it for free because it didn't work, or I really don't remember. But what I did find is it had a non-soldered battery, one of these Tataran batteries. This was manufactured in 1990, and the system clock was actually still working with this. I measured the voltage on this. It was about 1 volt left, which was apparently enough to keep the clock functional, which was surprising. Anyway, I yanked this out because we don't want any batteries in these old Macs because they'll eventually leak. There was a bunch of spider webs inside. The board was super dusty. I blew it off with some compressed air outside. And then what I like to do to kind of get the stickier dust off is I use a paintbrush. I think this one's nylon. So nylon's non-conductive, and I don't think it builds up static electricity, though I could be wrong. But just, some quick brushing to get that stubborn dust off and made the board look brand new. This one obviously has 4 megs of RAM because it can boot up System 7.5 off my Blue SCSI. So that's a plus. Just kidding, it's an SE. Haha, dad jokes. So we're running 753 on this on an external Blue SCSI. Now I think the biggest surprise about this one, other than that it worked and the clock was still up to date, was that it had a Sony drive in it. Now I don't know that I've ever seen a Sony drive from this vintage before. Like, I don't have any Sony drives. I've never pulled a Sony drive out of a Mac. And oddly enough, this one does have the Apple 40 megabyte sticker on it, and it's a 38 meg drive. This drive almost worked. After I took the board out, cleaned it, put it all back together, tried to boot off the drive. It did actually get the Happy Mac, and then it immediately rebooted. So I couldn't quite read it. When I did boot off the Blue SCSI, it could see the drive, and it wanted me to format it. So I tried that, but that just froze the machine. So something not quite right with this drive. I don't know anything about Sony drives. Maybe it's got one of the heads stuck to the rubber bumper or something. Maybe it's just failed. Who knows? But I've never seen a Sony drive before in a Mac. But I'd really like to try to get this drive working since I don't have a Sony drive and since it just almost works. It's so close to working. One other fun thing that happened with this Mac, when I tilted it forward to take the case off, I noticed there was a piece of plastic or something that was kind of coming out of the floppy drive. And so I got it pulled out. It was actually part of a Snickers wrapper, and it had a Star Wars Episode 3 promotion on it. Now, Star Wars Episode 3 came out in 2005, which means this machine was probably still in use at his school in 2005, where some kid, was eating Snickers and was like, stuff the wrapper in there. Any school machine typically has all kinds of inappropriate things shoved into the floppy drives, and this one appears to be no exception. But the fact that it made it all the way to 2005, still in active use, is pretty amazing. The only other thing about this, the display is nice and bright, but there is some burn-in at the top here. When you go to like a full gray screen like the boot screen, you can see kind of the title bar there. But when it's up and running, you can't really notice it because there is an actual title bar here. So yeah, we're 2 out of 3 that have just worked, so that's good. Apologies for not getting this one recorded, but like I said, it wasn't as dirty as the other ones. He didn't miss out on like a super like awesome cleaning video like I did with the first 2. Board was dirty, or blew it off with air, paintbrushed it, took the drive out, saw a Sony drive, Star Wars Snickers wrapper, episode 3, blah blah blah. This machine works. All right, let's get on to the next one. All right, so here we have contestant number 4. So this one is pretty clean. You know, there's a little bit of grime and dust on it. Screen's a little dirty, but overall for a machine of this vintage, it's in pretty decent shape. Now, this one came to me by way of a barn find, and it came with an SE30 as well. And they were both stuff's falling off my desk. They were both sold as untested, and I wanted to take this one apart before I could look at it, and I couldn't get this screw out here. So I think I ended up buying some drill bits and was gonna just try to drill this one out, but as you can see, it now just came out all by itself. So that's interesting, because that was definitely not what was happening before. And that's also the wrong screw that's in there. That one should have been one of the black screws, I think. So I don't know if someone's been in here before, or if Apple just ran out of black screws on the day this machine was assembled. But I was looking forward to drilling it out. I even bought some titanium drill bits, because I had originally tried to drill it out with whatever I had on hand, which is probably like a wood bit, and that did not work. So there's no screws in the top. I left those out when I couldn't get this out. Let's just pop this one open. All right. This one looks pretty clean inside, I think, from what I can see so far. Yeah, it looks pretty good. This one's got the different RF shield. If you remember on the earlier ones we looked at in this video, the RF shield went on the sides as well. This one just has the bottom and back. So I don't know if Apple did this to save money, or if this was the original one, and then the FCC came to him and said there's still too much RF interference, you need to put more shielding on the sides and bring this further back. I don't know which came first. This one says revision E, so this is probably a later one. So I would assume at some point they said, well, this RF shield we've been making is too big, we don't need it, it's costing us too much money, we're spending like an extra 2 cents, so let's cut that down. But anyway, yeah, inside looks pretty clean. There's a hard drive in this one as well. So I think it's also missing screws. So somebody also definitely has been in here before and put a hard drive in upside down and didn't screw in all the screws for whatever reason. Actually, it looks like the screw holes don't even line up. So this is definitely not a drive that would have come with this Mac. It says Quantum 1990 on the bottom of the drive. So it's Quantum drive. All right, let's disconnect things here. Lift this up. Open it like a hinge, I guess. And, oh, that's interesting. It's got a really short audio cable. Okay, so on this one, no battery. So somebody's definitely been in here before. The audio cable pins are bent, probably because the cable is so tight. So I assume somebody's worked on this at some point. It looks like it has 4 megs of RAM. Yeah, the jumper is set to 4 megabytes. In a previous video, I talked about how on the older SEs you had to change a resistor for changing between 256K sims and 1 meg sims. The later ones have this jumper, and it's set to the 4 meg position. So this is a 4 meg machine. So everything looks okay, no battery to worry about, which is great. So I'll plug the analog, I'll just plug everything in. We'll plug in the analog board, we'll plug in the floppy, and let's give this one a whack and see what we get. Well, it's got a very loud hard drive, but it chimed, which is good. We're gonna get video. Yes, we are. Oh, it's got a really dim monitor. Yeah, it's really dim. On the Mac that I forgot to hit record on, one thing I talked about too was This power wash stuff works great for the cases, and you know, for like the initial cleaning to get some of the grease off the monitor. It works really good for that, but it does leave like a film behind on glass. So what I recommend, use this first on really dirty monitors. And then, as always, pull out the Windex, because Windex, and make sure you buy the brand name Windex. Like, I'm not a spokesman or sponsored by SC Johnson and Company, but there's something in real Windex that just works better than any of the generic equivalents. Same with like Dawn dish soap. Like, I don't know what Dawn puts in their soap to make it work so well, and I don't know what Windex puts in their glass solution to make it work so well, but yeah, so that takes the film right off. All right, looks like it booted up just fine. Screen is very used. I can see the raster lines, so it's already like cranked all the way up. So this machine probably got a ton of use. There's a bunch of games on it: Towers of Hanoi, ATC 2.1, Space Invaders, Dalek 2.0, Hot Air Balloon, Brickles, 3D Tic-Tac-Toe, Shuffle Puck, Stunt Copter, Mac Landing Folder, Missile Command. So I don't know if you can see the retrace lines, but they're there. So this machine probably has been used quite heavily, which is great. You know, people bought these machines, they should use them. All right, so we can try to adjust it a little bit, but I think it's already probably all adjusted. Now you need to do it when it's on so you can actually see what you're doing. And you don't want to stick metal into the analog board while it's running, because potentially death. So I've got these ceramic drivers that I use. So let's try to adjust the cutoff. See if we can get anything there. Yeah, it just shows the retrace lines more. Yeah, brightness is all the way up. And if we turn it too bright, we get even worse retrace lines. We can try to adjust the focus because it's a little blurry. That's slightly better. We can change the height, the width, but none of that's really going to affect the brightness. So yeah, this CRT is pretty much nearing the end of its life, but it does obviously still work, just a little hard to see. But yeah, great. Once we got that screw out that I had started to drill out, this one here, it was all corroded. It seems like everything's good on this machine. So let's go ahead and shut it off and put it all back together. All right, so let's just give this one a bit of a quick clean since we have it here. There's definitely some dirt there, but this is nothing like the first three, so I expect this will just take mere seconds to clean. Yeah, this just stuff comes right off, no problem. You can even see on the power button here that the on-off switch has been worn off because it's been used so much. So you'd expect there to be a little bit more grease, fingerprint grease on there, but no, there wasn't. So whoever had this machine obviously took really good care of it. Bottom is in pristine shape. It looks like we do have a little bit of gunk by the floppy here. All right, so that's 3 out of 4 that just worked. And that's not really a big surprise because the SEs, like I've been saying, have been very solid machines. So this is the board that we cleaned. Now that I got a scrub, it looks practically brand new. I don't think I've had a board come out looking this nice after just one washing ever. Usually there's still some gunk left behind somewhere, but I think pre-treating it with the Dawn Power Wash really made it that much better. Like, it's completely clean. There's nothing left. All right, so I dug up my SE30 test chassis. And this one I've got this long cable that I made so I can run the board outside of the machine. Got my Blue SCSI hooked up. Let's turn this one on. No speaker, so we're not going to get a chime. But as you can see, we've got the initial gray screen. And this test chassis has a bunch of burn-in too, which is why it ended up being just one I use for testing. So this board does have just 2 megabytes in it. but 2 megabytes is enough to boot this 753 image that I have on here. So as you can see, this board works fine. So this is the one that we cleaned and tested in its original chassis, where there was a bunch of clicking, the power wasn't working right. Tested in my other SE chassis, which I thought was working, but again, I didn't follow Adrian's advice, and I didn't test my test equipment before I tested with it. So it's also having the same problem. I think it's the flyback that is having the problem. That's usually the clicking, but it could also be the power supply. So I think what I want to do is take the power supply out of this one and put it in there. Well, actually what I want to do is take the power supply out of that one, look at it, see if any of the capacitors are clearly leaked or failed or anything, and then replace them if they are. But then I want to, if that doesn't fix it, then I want to take the power supply out of this one with that analog board to see if it is the flyback that's failing or not. Now, if it's the flyback, that's pretty tough to repair because you can't get those parts anymore. Obviously, I have a spare in this one. I use this one for testing, but so I could just take the power supply and analog board out of here, slap it in that chassis, and we'd be good to go. But I'd rather try to figure out what's actually wrong. So before I do that, we'll do a little bit of troubleshooting. So anyway, this board's fine. We know it's all good. I don't have a mouse, so I can't click OK here, but it is a working machine. So we'll turn that off. Disconnect it. We'll get the board out of the way for now. I still can't believe how clean it came out with that Dawn power wash. Just amazing. All right, so we'll unplug it. And then the first thing we need to do is take care of the high voltage in both of these CRTs, since they've both been turned on recently. So let me adjust the camera a little bit here. All right, so I'm going to take one of my clip leads here, clip it onto my screwdriver. I'm going to clip the other side onto ground here. Now, I'm wearing rubber shoes, and that should keep me from being connected to ground. I'm not touching anything. And I've got one hand behind my back, so it can't go across my heart. I'm just going to put this in here, and we should get a bit of a tick as it discharges. The tricky part is getting under this plastic. All right, so there we go. We should be back to the capacitor is discharged, because remember, the CRT is really just a giant capacitor. I like to really get in there and make sure that we are definitely grounded, because it would hurt a lot to take a shock from one of these. All right, I think we're good. Oh, and this is all like rubbery gooey. Just to be sure, I always touch it to ground as well. All right, so we're good. So this one has been de-energized. Now I want to do this one. All right, we're good here. So I didn't get too much of a tick from either one of these. There are bleeder resistors that are supposed to discharge them, but you can't always trust that those work, so it is important to make sure that you're being safe while you're working on these. And as I always do, just touch it to ground. Make sure we're good. All right. Now this has got the rubbery goo problem on it, so my hand is all sticky now, so I need to wash that off. All right, so we'll set this one out of the way for now, and then we'll take the power supply out of this one. So first things first, neck board comes off so we don't break anything. To get the power supply out, easiest thing is really just to take the entire analog board off. So on the earlier Macs, like the 128K, the 512K, the Plus, those machines, their analog board actually did all of the power conversion directly. There was no separate power supply like the SEs and the SE30s. So they were a little easier to work on, in my opinion, because it was just, one less component that you had to worry about. And then we're going to take the grounding wire off here on the back. All right, with all the screws out, the board kind of just pulls away. And you can see we have all these different connections, including this one that goes to the power supply. So we can take that out. I'm just looking at the analog board here. I don't see any problematic capacitors. Now, they can fail and still be visually okay, but I don't see any sort of like damage to the board from leaked goo or anything. I still think it's the flyback here that is the problem. But let's take a look at the power supply. Alright, so we've got the power supply open. So just looking for any sort of signs of obvious issues. Well, there does appear to be some gunk on the board in this area. Yeah, we have like some gunk along here. So something might have happened. One of these capacitors might have leaked. And I don't think we'll know until we take it out. So let's do that. Now, of course, just like with the CRT, these capacitors are charged as well, likely. So we'll want to be careful and make sure we discharge those. All right, yeah, there's definitely some problems on this area of this board. So I think that's actually a pretty common problem for these. Before I do anything, let me short out this giant capacitor here so I don't zap myself. All right, should be good. All right, see on the board here, there is like some black goo. So what components are over here? We got a bunch of capacitors. Did one of these fail? And if so, which one? Well, I guess I could just start taking them out and looking for the bad one. Let's see if we can clean this board up a little bit first, though. It's like a really black color. That's not typical for the capacitor goo to be that color. I don't know if that's what this is or not, but yeah, it's like a really dark black. Hopefully it's not like black mold or something that I'm breathing in. Okay, well, it kind of comes off, but not like super easily. And it's not really centered around any one capacitor, and there's really nothing on top of the board here that shows any damage. All just on the bottom. All right, well, let's just yank a couple of capacitors out. I guess what I could do instead is try to run this power supply on my other system to see if it functions there. That would tell us if it was the flyback or something on the analog board. It's clearly got something going wrong with it, though. Yeah, let's take some of these capacitors out. So I'm going to start with the biggest one here in this corner. I'm getting that fishy capacitor leak smell. I guess it seems likely that it is one of these capacitors that has failed. So it'd be great if it was this one. Got a little more flux on there. Well, there's definitely goo on this capacitor. I don't know if you can see it, but up here we got some goo. So this is a 1000 microfarad 25 volt. Let's see what it tests to. $960 microfarads, and it's supposed to be 1000. All right, so it's within spec, ESR rating of 10.3. So the problem with this is I don't have a list of what capacitors go where. So I need to pay special attention. I probably should write this down, but Let's just test another one of these while it's in circuit still. Let's see if we get anything different here. Now, you can't always test capacitors in circuit, but sometimes it works. 2,500 microfarads, ESR of 0. It was supposed to be 1,000 microfarads, yeah. So I think it's probably shared with another capacitor. There you go. 1,000 microfarad, 35 volt. That'll be perfect. For fun, let's just test this one before we put it in. (902) ESR of 0. Well, that's a way better ESR reading. All right, and negative is the stripe, and negative is on the board. Need a bit of solder here. I think we got enough flux on there still. Yeah, that fishy dead capacitor smell is quite strong here. And we'll just take those leads and cut them off. So that might fix it. That might be the only thing wrong with it. I'm willing to give it a try at least. This is all quite precarious. So I have it unplugged. Everything looks like nothing is touching that shouldn't be touching. I think we're okay. So I'm gonna switch it on, unplugged. Then I'm gonna plug this in to a place far away from this computer that I can unplug quickly if something goes horribly wrong. All right, so I'm a safe distance away. I'm gonna plug it in. It's not making that horrible sound anymore, though. Okay, well, it stopped making the sound, but now it's not doing anything with the screen. And we were saying stuff on the screen before. Well, I guess we made it better and worse at the same time. It stopped making the horrible noise, but also it's not doing anything. I wonder if the board's booting. We'll plug this blue SCSI in, and we'll see if the activity light goes. All right, yeah, the board's booting. Just because the activity light was going, so good. Before it looked like the power was flickering enough where it would cause the board to crash. But it's getting better. But it's not working to send voltage to the monitor. I've got no high voltage here. All right, let's yank the cord. And now before I do anything, I need to discharge the CRT again since we just had it plugged in. And I don't want to get zapped. But before I take it all apart, let me just double check all these connections. Make sure we got everything. Yeah, everything looks good. So I don't know why changing that capacitor would cause the monitor to stop working unless that was the final gasp of the flyback and it just totally died now. Certainly possible. Neck board is in there good and tight. Yeah, I can't think of anything here that would cause that to make the CRT stop working. All right, well, let's discharge it and take another look. All right, so this potentially is working now, but I don't really know how to prove that out without swapping in another part. I guess I could check the output voltages, but it's a little tricky, a little risky. I think it's going to be easier just to take the power supply from the known good machine, which is here, and then just try to run this analog board with this power supply. So, let me take this one out. Alright, so this is just sitting in here loose. That's fine, nothing's touching that shouldn't be touching. Just double checking, it all looks fine to me. So we got everything plugged in, double check. Alright, so I'll switch it to on, plug it in, unplugged here, and then I'll just plug it in. Let's see what happens. Little chimes, that's not really a surprise. And look at that. So we should get the flashing question mark here. So that means something else is still wrong with this power supply, which is good. It's not the flyback, which would have been really bad news. So probably more of these capacitors in here have leaked, and we should probably replace them all. So then I'd also assume that the power supply in the other SE chassis I have has failed as well, since it was doing the exact same thing. So that might be a good future video where I repair both of the power supplies. So this one certainly is bad. The other one likely is bad. But we've got, fortunately, a spare power supply here we can use. So I think that's good. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep this power supply in here. And we'll work on this one in a future video. There's only a few capacitors to replace, but something else could have failed as well. It's a little hard to know for sure. I mean, there is some like goo on this transformer. I think that's okay. There's some goo here on this transformer, but again, that's probably just glue. I mean, it's not sticky, so I think it's from when these were made. Likely it's the capacitors up here. And we'll just reassemble this power supply here. Hard drive slot cover came off here. Alright, well, worry about that later. This drive might have to come out anyway. It might be dead. Alright, so let's see if this hard drive works. My guess is no. It is a Quantum. Let's see. Yeah, this hard drive is also dead. Yeah, no, like I said, no surprise it's dead, being sitting out in wherever this machine was, collecting bugs and mud wasps. Not good for hard drives. There's our RF shield. Case. We'll replace these screws that were the metallic ones with the silver ones. And then we'll replace the ones that were metallic and corroded and rusty with new ones, well, used ones that I happen to have in my parts bin. Alright, and then let's just plug in the Blue SCSI here. Give it one more boot, make sure everything's still good. So far, so good. Well, it's booting. I did happen to find that piece of Snickers wrapper with the Star Wars Episode 3 logo on it that was tucked in the floppy drive of Machine 2, I think, right? The one that I forgot to film. But, yeah, so that's just kind of cool from 2005. Interesting. Still some caramel or nougat or something on this wrapper, too, it looks like. Gross. Like I said, overall pretty clean. It does have a couple of spots on it that we can just clean up really quick here. Yeah, that's just instantly takes care of it. Really nice. There's the front looking. Well, it looks like it could use a little bit of help. So yeah, it's still booted up. Okay, I don't have a mouse or keyboard hooked up, so I can't click through this. But right, so we were 4 for 4. Now this one maybe I would say like 0.75. Because we did pull a whole other part in to replace a failed power supply. I feel like that was kind of cheating when we could have just replaced those capacitors. But it's March and Tosh, so we can be forgiving and forgetful about past transgressions of swapping in parts without actually fixing problems in PSUs. Anyway, yeah, this one seems to be working just fine, so let's go ahead and turn it off. All right, well, here they are. They're all at least working for the most part. Just doing a bit of extra troubleshooting, final setup, testing the floppies out on these. This one has a bad floppy drive. Again, no surprise. This was out in the barn or wherever. But yeah, for the most part, I would say everything's looking really nice. And then one last thing I like to do is to take a Mr. Clean Magic Eraser and kind of just get those last couple of spots that are really hard to get. Now, you have to be careful with this because it can remove some of the finish. You know, the apples have the textured finish. But if you're careful with it, you can get some of those stubborn spots off that the Dawn stuff doesn't. But again, that stuff works super well. I think I've said it about 100 times in this video. The old standby comes in and just kind of finishes the job. You can kind of get in some of those cracks as well that I had to use a toothbrush for. Anyway, I think that's going to be it for this video. Like I said, we'll take a look at this power supply and the power supply in the other SE in a future video. It's probably just capacitors, so didn't want to take any more time up here. But nothing says happy Marcintosh like 4 SEs brought back from the dead. Although none of them really were all that dead. They're SEs, they're tanks, they don't die. They just stop working for short periods of time. Anyway, happy Marcintosh to you. Hope you enjoyed the video. And we'll be back next week with some maybe more Mac content, maybe not. I don't know what we're going to do next week, but it's kind of always Marcintosh here in my basement. Anyway, we'll see you around.
Hi guys! Make sure to like and subscribe and watch more of our videos later.